Well, welcome to another edition of The Veganist Life. I am Chef Candace, and this is my second guest, my wonderful and beautiful friend, Nakia Pruitt, with May being Mental Health Awareness Month. I wanted to have a conversation. So Nakia just so happens to be a licensed therapist. What is your exact title?
I am a licensed clinical social worker, and so that is just a license name, but we can go by many names, social worker, but for my actual job, I'm in private practice, and so I'm a psychotherapist.
A psychotherapist.
Yes.
Okay, cool. When I think about psychotherapy, I kind of instantly think of Sigmund Freud. Was he a psychotherapist?
He was a psychotherapist.
Okay, but we're not going to get into all of that right now
into
because that'll be going way, way too deep. The world wants to know, how did Nakia Pruitt end up becoming a social worker / psychotherapist?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a long question, and I'll try my best for you and the world to minimize this in an elevator speech. So if you got 60 seconds, I would say it was something that I've always been passionate about. Like, this just so happens to be my profession. But this is not just a job for me. This is my calling. I really do feel like this is something that I've been purposed to do. And it just so happens to be in this form. I didn't always know that I wanted to do this, but I've always known from the beginning, ever since I was a child, like I always had a heart for people and humanity. Like everything around me had feelings. My stuffed animals had feelings, objects had feelings, trees had feelings, and so like I was always in tune with energy of people, and so it's just so happened like in life, all of the choices that I've made, even the wrong choices or what I've labeled as the wrong choice, has led me to this place today. So
so therapy, in particular, in the African American community, is becoming a buzzword. It's now like sexy to even see a therapist. And I know on my journey, I was looking for a therapist for a really long time. And it wasn't until I met you randomly, or
random. That was random.
It was random. It was
purpose.
One fate. I call it kismet. Last February, as a matter of fact, I met Nakia out at a art show, and we became fast friends. And little did I know that I would be on a journey with a therapist. Indirectly.
And I try my best not to therapize my friends, so I've been throwing that out there.
Is that a word?
Yes, it's therapize. It's a word. But again, this just so happened, and I'm so grateful. Grateful that our paths crossed. Like you said, it was definitely fate. Whatever you would call it, it was just an openness, an invitation to inviting presence and energy. So I'm grateful for that path as well. But yeah, so I try my best not to therapize my friends, but again, this is just who I am.
This is who you are.
This is just who I am. But you mentioned about the buzzword about therapy and it's a new thing in the Black community. I think for myself and understanding, again, every therapist is unique, has their own style, has their own approach, because we all come in with our experiences and our style, and how we learn is from different different teachings. And so for me, I always thought that therapy and understanding therapy, we are just now not necessarily now getting used to it, but we've always utilized holistic ways of healing.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happens to be therapy in the West is more so let's talk about it, let's provide a safe space, non-judgmental. So the West is really big on language and to help people get an understanding, which is psychotherapy. It's more so your traditional talk. But if you bring in and look at it from a holistic standpoint of what healing looks like, and this is what makes a Black therapist very unique, is understanding, bringing in different modalities that hasn't always been accepted from colonial practices. And so whether it be gardening, that's healing, whether it be church groups and singing, that's healing, whether it be music, movement, dance, drumming, cooking, being in community barbecues, fellowship, like those were our ways of healing for our bodies. But you do bring a really good point about how those were just things that we did, but we don't recognize how healing and how nurturing those things that we do and did were for our soul. Our ancestors, what did our ancestors do before we had talk therapy? Because we weren't allowed to talk.
Right.
We weren't even considered human.
Right.
So what did they do, and how did they make it through some of the most challenging and trying and adverse times without your traditional sense of talk therapy? And so again, bringing in those holistic approaches. And so that's what I think it's when we're talking about our community, how important it is for therapy in a talk sense to give language. It gives language to things because again, in the West, language is something that is very important. Like English language is one of the language when we talk about worldwide, how businesses, that's the language that you have to learn. You have to learn English to import and trade. And so how language in this sense is important for us when we're talking about healing, to give language to the things and to the parts of us that always didn't have language, especially as kids, right? I think we had language, but we were just taught or conditioned to not have language in a way, because language could have looked as challenging. Language was private. Again, when we talk about our communities, what goes on in the house stays in the house.
Yeah, or it's, know a child's play.
Yes.
It's better, to be seen but not heard.
Yes, absolutely.
All of these types of dynamics, right?
Yeah.
When you mentioned about like the different forms of healing that we traditionally engaged in, do you think that the preacher, the pastor, the minister, the deacon, do you think they kind of served as in those roles as a therapist like back in the day? Or
yeah, for sure. I would say more of a counselor. And that's traditionally what we've been ingrained. Again, when we talk about, now that'll be another topic for another time.
Right.
But how spirituality in the Black church was a form of healing. And the pastor, the deacon, they were entrusted leaders in the community. And so when you needed advice, when you needed guidance, when you needed counsel, wise counsel, those were the people who you would go seek out.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. So moving forward, because I really, this topic is so important to me because it's just necessary. It's necessary to have, someone to talk to.
Yes.
Right? Where you can just have a safe space to be vulnerable. You're so good at what you do. It is such a gift. And I just wanted people to get a chance to really just hear from someone that has helped me, you know, in the short time that I've known you, in so many ways you probably just don't even know.
Oh.
We all need somebody.
We all
to talk.
need somebody to talk to, absolutely.
So therapy, I mean, it's such a broad topic. As a licensed therapist, walk us down or kind of help us to understand what a typical day looks like for you.
So a typical day for myself is I recognize when I wake up, my thoughts are going. Like they're already task oriented, and so I had to learn to be more intentional about how to start the day. So I might start off with some scrolling. I'll start off with reading my word. What's the scripture for the day? What's the mantra for the day? And then I'll start with the walk. I'll start with some meditation, some grounding. I'll check in with my body to kind of see like, okay, what am I feeling? Typically, I used to wake up with a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure of feeling like I have to do something or I forgot something. And so again, I've wanted to create my schedule in a way that allows for me to work through all of those things before I go into holding space for others. And so some grounding, some mindfulness, some walking, and then I walk my dog. So my dog Lucy. Yes, shout out to Lucy Pearl. So I walk with her.
It is Lucy Pearl?
It is Lucy Pearl.
After the group, Lucy
After
Pearl?
the group.
What?
Yes. I wanna dance tonight. Yes. So that is my day. And it also might consist of me chatting with some friends in the morning. Getting some word, getting some connecting, some connections. I think that's because again, that's the best time for me.
Okay. In the morning?
In the mornings.
Okay.
Yes.
We're hearing some words here.
Yes.
We're hearing about, you know, mantras
Yes.
and grounding and being aware of how you're feeling.
Yes.
You know, being aware of what's going on in your body, all of those things. So we're still going through your day.
Yeah.
So we learned about how you specifically start your day. So how does that look when you're going to either see a client or a client is coming to see you? Do your clients typically come see you?
So I do remote. So I do have in-person sessions, but so I'll go to the location where I work, and I'll, you know, again have sessions there. But for the most part, I do remote as well. So I'm doing a hybrid.
Okay, so it's like a virtual type
a virtual session. And if I'm in person, then people will just come to the agency.
Okay. So how do you, once again, like what does that look like for you? Yeah. So do you have like notes prior to the session? Like basically like a doctor, because you're like a doctor of mental health, right? So, you know, when you go to the doc, you know, to your, you know, general practitioner or whatever, you sit down, they look at the board and they go down.
Yeah.
Is it something similar?
So you look at your notes, but for me, I have a therapeutic relationship with my clients, and I remember stories.
Okay.
And so for me, I'm looking at, okay, I remember it's a gift and a curse at the same time, but I can remember exactly what we left off on the last time.
What?
Yes. And so I kind of keep that in mind of, okay, what is the intention for this session? But really it has nothing to do with me and everything to do with what the client wants and needs.
Okay.
And so.
Okay. So it's basically you lead the session based on what the client wants. So for example, I come in, I'm a client, and all I want to do today is cry or, you know, just vent. I may not necessarily want to hear anything.
I got to say, which is fair.
Right? Like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
fair.
look, I don't want any advice. I just kind of want to just
Get it
peel
out.
off, get
Yeah.
it out. I
For
just kind
sure.
of want to, you know, I don't want to say have a tantrum, but I'm sure you've experienced these things.
Yeah, I've had people
Right,
get up.
a breakdown, have people ever walked out on you?
Yes, I have people walk out on me, and they've come back.
Okay. So, with that being said, so you said you adjust how you, what would be the word? How you, I know it's therapize, not therapize.
Adjust how am I holding space and such.
But I guess, yeah. So that's one thing, because I never heard about that. So one of the things, because I want this to be like a cohesive, so people who have never been to therapy kind of have a sense of what it may actually look like. But as you mentioned, like each therapist has their own, you know, way of going about how they
approach the work. Yeah.
Approach the work, provide the service.
Yeah. So for me, okay. For me, it's really, I don't give advice, and so clinically, we have to look at treatment plans, right? Okay. So you come in, you say, hey, again, keeping all of that into consideration, that this is somebody's first time. And we're not about to jump into all the clinical dialogue about diagnosing you. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing in every session is just like when you meet a person. You don't go in and just give your whole life story, but you generally just do an introduction, create an environment in a safe space.
Shout out to Tina.
Shout out to Tina. Rest in power.
Rest in power, ancestor.
Yes. But the question was, what's if people were coming,
will people be mad, aggressive, and yelling?
No, when people are coming in.
Yeah, the introduction.
Yeah, introduction. It's really just, I throw all it out the window. Okay, so who are you? What brings you here?
What brings you here?
What is it that you want to work on? What is it that you're looking for from me?
Yes.
I'm a big believer in therapy is like shoes. So you want to make sure you have the right fit.
Yes.
Because you don't want to walk around with shoes that are uncomfortable or painful.
Yes.
But you want to make sure you have the right fit. And so that's the most important thing for me as a therapist. Am I the right person for you and what you're looking for?
Okay.
And so, I think it's safety. You got to it's so important for especially us, the stigma, the fear, because we've been holding on to this information for so long, and the transparency. And the first thing that I want to do is to make you feel safe.
Yes.
What is it that looks like? What does that entail? What does safety entail for you?
Right. Sometimes in our community, for example, there may be a bit of hesitancy to even see a therapist or even to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, when I think about, for example, my own experience, sometimes of oversharing or sharing with the wrong person or the wrong group of people, and then you look up your business all over the street, and then you're like, man, I'm not going to tell anybody anything. Right? And then that leads to kind of this isolation. One of the things that I've noticed is that, in my particular walk, I've kind of, at a point, I had become, just very hesitant to share, to even mention anything that's
Yeah.
going on just due to fear of maybe it being repeated, it turning into gossip, or someone using that against you at any point in time. And I recognize that even if you don't express those things or get them out in some way, like your body will keep the score. What's the psychologist? Is he a psychologist or psychologist?
He's a MD.
He's an MD.
Yeah. So his name is Bessel van der Kolk.
Okay. All right. Your body keeps the score. That's the name of a book that's come across my path, and it's just true. Like all those repressed emotions and feelings and resentment, bitterness, anger, like all those things will show up and lead to disease.
Yes,
which
absolutely.
At the end of the day, disease is just dis-ease.
Yeah.
When you break it down, right? It's dis-ease. Dis-ease, right? When you are like constantly in a state of fight or flight.
Fawning, freeze.
What's fawning and freeze?
Freeze, so it's when your body goes into a state of, when there's a threat, you have 4 choices. Is either you're going to fight, you're going to flight, you're going to freeze, which is like a deer caught in headlights. It's like they freeze because, that's a way of tricking your prey. So like possums play dead, that's freezing. So you trick your prey. So that's freeze. And then this newer term is called fawning, which is an aspect of people pleasing.
Okay.
So you fawn. Just to kind of, we do that so much in our community, just to kind of go along with it, but it really does actually hurt you. So yeah.
Okay. So really quickly, can you just give us a working definition of therapy and what that actually is? Because like we mentioned earlier, it's the thing right now. Like everybody is like, oh, my therapist, and my therapist said, or my therapist recommended. So I just want to, for those who are maybe in therapy, considering therapy, whatever may have you, what is therapy?
Therapy is a place where you go to focus on your mental and emotional health. Therapy in the West, so we tend to treat the body and your mental health different. So if you're sick, you go to the doctor. If you need to focus on your mental health, you go to a therapist. So it's really a place where you just go and get work on your mental and emotional health, pretty much.
Okay, awesome. Another buzzword that I've been hearing quite recently is called doing the work.
Doing the work.
Doing the work. Doing the work.
The work. The work. The work.
So, what does it actually mean when someone says, do the work, I'm doing the work, or there's work to do?
There's work to do.
There's work to do.
There's work to do. It just depends on where you are, what space you're in that moment. Most people have a misconception that therapists are going to do the work for you. So we're just guides. Good therapists should not be giving advice, not to say that we won't give input
or
where
guidance.
It's not guidance, where it's not invited. But yes, doing the work requires you have to do a lot of that heavy lifting, which means doing the work for me and how I understand it is going inward. When you come to therapy and you're asking me, I'm stressed out about my job, my relationships are, falling apart, I don't feel happy. I look at it, okay, so what is this really about? Is this really about a relationship? Is this really about Or is it something more than just this relationship or this job? It's themes. What is this theme about that we keep coming back? Patterns. I can't necessarily, I can highlight those things, but you have to, the work requires for you to go inward. Asking those reflective questions of, who am I? Am I happy with who I am today? And if not, what does it need to get, what do I need to get there? Why am I feeling like this all the time? Why is my body hurting after I'm coming from the doctor and they can't seem to find anything wrong? Or what are these aches and pains? And so again, we're talking about therapy. We are looking at from a holistic standpoint of, okay, I hear you telling me about this work stress. This is not, it's not just about work. It's something about this that's underneath this that we gotta get to. Doing the work also requires a lot of personal accountability. That PA word can be scary, but it, again, going inward is looking at, we're holding that mirror up and saying, okay, I hear what other people have done to you, but what is this? What's coming up for you? What are you looking at in the mirror? And so that's that reflective piece of reflection.
Okay. Okay. I love that. Just that PA meaning personal accountability, right?
Yes.
So just holding yourself accountable. I am one of those people that if I was to pan the room, you would see all these books, because I have, for the past 20 years, I have dedicated my life to doing the work. And I am just now, 20 years later, 20 years in, feeling like I'm getting to a place where I'm making some progress. Right? Because with a lot of us, and this is something that I want to go into next, have a lot of trauma, right? And I found that even with my own trauma, I kind of parallel it or equate it to like how you peel an onion.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like, okay, you peel that outer layer. Okay, you peeled it, but it's like a gazillion more layers under there that you have to peel.
Say that.
And one of the things that you showed me the other day was when Sister Tabitha Brown, we love some Tabitha in this house, mentioned, I just got a chill, mentioned that just because you may revert back or have a trigger, that's another buzzword, trigger, that does not mean that you're not doing the work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So while on this topic of work, I found that to be very profound. I want to expound on that. For example, people, I've definitely experienced this just quite recently, where I had a major trigger and I just beat myself up about it for weeks. I'm still in a space of man, you shouldn't have answered the phone. You shouldn't have answered that call. You knew you was mad. You should have gave yourself a minute. I didn't follow my intuition. And the beast was unleashed, right? Yeah. And then I feel like I talked to you and I was just feeling, I can be a super thug, okay. No, I was just feeling dang, is all lost? Or do I just stay away from triggering people? Or
Yeah, for sure. Well, going to your point about trauma and understanding, I think we don't realize that knowledge is powerful. But when we're talking about feelings and trauma, you cannot intellectualize trauma. And that is the misconception, is that I'm going to read, I know all of these, which is important, but trauma is not something that you can intellectualize. It's actually something that you feel in your body, meaning it shows up in your moods. It shows up in your how you're regulating an emotion. It's, for me, it's this idea that we're going to, once I learn it and I get through it, then I'm over it. And unfortunately, that's not the truth. The realness of it is, doing this work, it's never a destination. You know, it's a constant thing. And just because I get triggered and I might react to it, again, we're not perfect, we're human. The healness and the healing comes from how I respond to myself after I react. For sure, we can do our best to do the work to not allow ourselves to react, but it is how we respond to that moment. And then it comes with shame and criticism and guilt of, I should have done that. Should have. That word is so powerful, because when we use the word language of should, it becomes a law. It's critical. But there is no grace when we say should. You didn't. So now what? I should be a millionaire, but I'm not.
You are.
I want to speak it, but financially in my bank accounts, we millionaires.
It's just all those zeros, they catching up.
Yeah, they catching up.
They come.
Absolutely. I want to speak that, but in the moment right now, there were so many different things that were at play as to why I wasn't able to respond the best way I could have. Okay, so how do I speak to that version of me? Doing that work is also speaking to that inner child, that person that is still holding on to that wound, that's still feeling triggered. That triggered was just a message to say, this makes me uncomfortable still. Or I'm still not quite settled with this, and that's okay. We're not asking you to be perfect. We're just working through how to somatically work through that trauma in the body. So when you are responding,
what is just for the people?
Go ahead.
What
somatic means
using the SAT word.
Yes, I'm sorry. Somatic is, just for regular standard terms, it's your body work.
Okay.
It's the physiological response when you are at a heightened sense of an emotion, like anger. You somatically feel like you feel your muscles tense, you feel your nostrils flare, you feel your teeth clenching. And so so when we're talking about somatic, it's just really how your body is responding to this emotion.
The $1 million question.
The $1 million question.
Because I feel like we having because see, if y'all saw Nikki outside dancing somewhere, you'll see a whole. But y'all about to see that in a few minutes on my IG page.
Okay.
At the Veganist Life.
The Veganist Life.
The Veganist Life.
Yes.
Where we gonna do a cinnamon roll recipe while we Tootsie roll. But anyway,
yes. Bring it back. This is doing the work. Community. Friendship. Fellowship. This is doing the work.
It's doing the work.
Go ahead.
It's doing the work. Because really quickly, one of our favorite pals, Drake. You know Drake.
Yeah.
From Canada. Right. He
Mm-hmm.
was like, no new friends.
No new friends.
I'm so glad I ain't listening to Drake.
Yeah, don't listen to Drake. That's a defense mechanism.
You said that's a defense. No, I listen. Look, right, like you not gonna have no new friends. So, cause I'm living to 100.
Yeah,
at least.
I'm going to try to aim for 105.
I was thinking like 120.
Okay,
but I don't want to be out in the street of people gasping like, yo, you about 150.
Little
Like,
Grace. By that time, I hope you be like, I'm gonna walk these streets. I don't give a hoot how I show up.
right.
Yeah.
Wrinkled and all.
Wrinkled and all.
Man, wouldn't that be crazy though? You would have like no wrinkles at 150.
I know, right? That would be crazy.
Yeah,
It would. Listen. It
Yo,
would
you would be like a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Like you would be like, okay.
Yeah.
The number one question
Yeah.
the people want to know:
What do the people want to know? Tell me.
do you take your own advice? Do you follow your own
Mm.
therapy or therapeutic
Mm-hmm.
framework? And do you do the work? And
Absolutely. I don't give food that I don't eat, which means being a therapist, the work, people like, I mean, sure, all you have to do is just sit there and listen to people every day. Like, how hard is that? It's actually really challenging.
whose voice was that?
Oh, that was a random
Don't
man's
say.
voice.
Don't say it. We politically
We
correct
politically correct.
on this channel right here.
Yes. But yeah, doing the what was the question?
Doing the work. Do
Yes.
you? Because see, this is one of the things that I found.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, it's kind of different because this is what you do.
Yeah.
But I found that people will have the best advice,
Mm-hmm.
the best solutions,
Mm-hmm.
the best ways to get started with the work, doing
Yeah.
the work, but don't be doing it themselves.
Yeah, sure. That's
But
why-
you just said you don't give food you don't eat. Though,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
Okay.
I try my best to be intentional
Okay.
about giving you the food that I'm giving you. I want to eat myself. A big chunk of being a therapist is sitting with discomfort all of the time, which means when you all come to sessions, we're asking ourselves, and I'm just being honest, okay, did I give them the right tools? Are they satisfied? Like we're constantly being put in a seat of judgment.
Yeah. So you said you're always in a seat of judgment.
Yeah, you're constantly, again, you're sitting with somebody and you're wondering if you're doing the best, are you being the best version of yourself for this person to heal? Like, that's a lot of responsibility.
It is a lot of
So
responsibility.
doing the work is letting go of that responsibility, which is why I say why I have to be intentional about how I start my day, how I end my day, because I also have to recognize as a therapist to let go of some of that responsibility. Letting go of that responsibility. I'm not a savior. I can't save you, but what I can do is give you a life raft. But it's up to you to decide if you want to do that. It's important, essential. I wouldn't be doing this work as far as I have been and as far as I've come if I didn't do my own work.
Okay.
I just want to add a big piece of doing the work is looking at the inner child. Again, you might want to come in and talk about work stress, but the biggest piece is really about an alignment and the readiness of doing that work. And so a couple books that I think could be helpful for people on their journey is Bell Hooks' book, All About Love. And so this book, thank you.
Yes.
This book really goes into, I love how she goes into helping us break down what love is, especially in our community. And so I would definitely add this to your collection. They're not only just talking about love, it's not just a book about love, but understanding the misconceptions and how we've been conditioned to understand what we thought was love from parental love. My thing as a clinician is if the people who brought me into this world don't love me or accept me, then I'm going to spend a lifetime looking for this type of love that was given to me, and not understanding that my parents have their own limitations and their own stories, which then leads to this next book by Resmaa Menakem, and hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He wrote this book called My Grandmother's Hands. And so this book goes into a lot of how intergenerational trauma, how racialized trauma has had such an impact on our bodies. And so the policing of our bodies, an understanding when he says my grandmother's hands, knowing that there is a story beyond the trauma. There is a story within you and within your parents. But if you are stuck in dysregulated emotions, if you are stuck in anger or rage, if you're stuck in unforgiveness, you won't be able to get the full story of, understanding who your parents were and understanding who their grandparents and so forth. We're missing pieces of the puzzle because we've personalized our parents' harm towards us as an insult. It was personal, and it unfortunately wasn't.
No,
it was not personal. So
or fortunately, it wasn't. And thank you for these books.
Yes.
We have Bell Hooks.
Yes.
All About Love.
Yes.
Right?
All About Love.
And we have My Grandmother's Hands by Brother Rishma.
Yes.
Hopefully pronounced it right. And so you'll always be learning. You're not gonna stop being triggered. Right? Hopefully you won't stop growing. And hopefully, instead of looking outward or externally, or my parents did and said, or Uncle Johnny did this, or my homegirl Keisha, or blah blah. You look at yourself. That really is the point of reference. As an adult, right? As children, we don't really have those liberties because you are in the environment. You have no control. But when you become of age and you're able to really, have that autonomy and move about in the world as you wish, as you please, it's imperative that you look in the mirror. It's imperative that you self-check and self-correct and not try to numb or disassociate or blame or say, hey, this is just how I am. This is how I've always been. And once again, it really goes to that piece of emotional maturity. How am I affecting those around me? Right? Like, how is my behavior, landing on those around me? Just to wrap up, I do sincerely appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for being a guest, Nakia, on The Veganist Life and sharing all of your wonderful gifts and information with all of our friends out there in the world. Hopefully you will have found value in this session about therapy, since it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and this is something that both myself and Nikki are passionate about. I am an advocate for mental health awareness, making sure you get help, making sure you have someone to talk to. We're in a season where so many people are suffering silently. Do you have anything you want to leave the people with?
Yes. So one, thank you for having me. Thank you for being open to this friendship.
Thank you.
One of the things that I love about Candace is her power of manifestation, her power to speak life and her walk in faith. And I am so humbled and blessed to be able to.
Man, this doggone train.
This train. Blessed to be able to see what, again, inviting and opening up so many new doors for me. And so I know you mentioned, you gave me some really great words in the beginning, so I'm going to leave with some words for you.
Thank you.
And just say thank you for inviting me into this place. Thank you for inviting me into your space and into your world to help me understand what healthy relationships and friendships can be in the space of vulnerability, in the space of honesty, transparency, and safety. And so thank you for being the light that you are.
Thank you.
Thank you for introducing me to some newness, some newness of this world, some vegan food. Like, thank you. This is your work and what you do in life and food and the way you navigate this world. I admire it so much. And so thank you for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do the work, yeah.
Do the work. Make sure you do the work. Make sure you look in the mirror every single day. You know what you do? You tell yourself, I love you.
Yeah.
You get in that mirror and you say, I love you. And you say it as many times as you need to. And it may be hard at first, but you'll get used to it.
Yeah.
But make sure you love you.
Yeah.
All right, then.
All right.
Well, checking out The Veganist Life. You can find me on Instagram at The Veganist Life. TheVeganOusLife. Life. Make sure.
Yeah.
Come on, Nikki.
Come
You
on.
hit that like and subscribe button. Come on, y'all. Come on, I need to get these followers
Come on.
up. Come on.
Come
into this house.
Let's do the work by celebrating each other.
Celebrate each other.
Just
We gotta-
add, like,
Come on,
share. Yeah.
All the things. You know what I'm saying? Support your
Bring it
girl.
up.
You know what I mean?
Support.
Like, come on over here. Come on. I got some good stuff.
Come on.
I got some
She
good
got
stuff.
good stuff.
I got good
She
stuff.
got real good
I
stuff.
got
Come
real good stuff.
on. Real.
So yes, check me later. I appreciate you and have a wonderful, wonderful day. And you know what? I hope you eat something really, really good today because you deserve it.
Yes.
All right, then.
Bye. Mwah.